Hello, this is Martha 2.0. I'm a YouTuber, and I have been a YouTuber for the whole month. Literally, May 30th was my first time to post a video for a long time. I've been teaching comprehensive phonics for 10 years, so I would teach my students and put videos online for them. But I came to YouTube now in 2025 because of the literacy crisis. And if you've come to me, I hope it's because of the literacy crisis and you want to help. If you have gaps in your educational system, I can help you fill in the gaps to teach reading. Reading is the most important skill, and this is how you teach reading. Now, if you've watched my other videos, thank you for coming back. If this is your first one, you're going to get a more organized Martha. You see, I teach with passion. I know how to teach, but it's different when you teach on YouTube. So I decided to make a handbook because number one, how can I teach organized lessons without a goal in mind? And I realized the program is very great, but it's a program that's fluid. There's a lot of moving parts, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. And so I thought, why not write a handbook? Because a handbook is like how to make something work. What is this machine that we're working? We're working the reading machine. We want to teach reading. And our goal is to have readers at the end of using this material. And teaching reading is not that complicated for me because I've been teaching for 33 years. But what I use, maybe you could too. So as my viewers, I want you to look at the handbook I'm writing and give me some advice, because it's not a handbook for me, though this does help me organize my thoughts as I'm teaching online. But I truly want to help you understand how to teach reading and once and for all, learn to read. You can read fluently. You can improve your reading skills. And if you have dyslexia, which 20% of the population does, this is the way that you need to learn reading. So this is the handbook for teaching reading, the Comprehensive Phonics Method. The purpose of this book is to teach you the basic principles needed to teach reading successfully. So there's 9 chapters, and I might add some more as we go, but this is the first installment, and so let me just cover them because I want you to know the end from the beginning so that you know where we're headed in all of this work. So first of all, I want you to understand what is teaching reading, because that's what we're teaching. What is it? I even thought of making the epilogue what reading instruction is not, because to learn a counterfeit dollar, you don't study the counterfeit, you study the real dollar, and then you'll know. So I'm going to be teaching you what reading instruction is. And then chapter 2, the basic building blocks of the English language. What are they? Phonograms. Hear a little. That's the purpose of the phonogram drill. When you're teaching reading, you're going to teach hear a little bit. I'm going to teach a little here and a little there. I'm going to switch to teaching the charts, and I'm going to organize your daily reading instruction, because reading instruction is a daily part of your day. If your students can't read, this handbook can fill in the gaps on a daily basis. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Did you know this? This knowledge is not taught in any college, and you're going to get to learn it from this handbook. Precept upon precept. You're going to review the analytical method of teaching reading. The precepts are the rules. Why do we use what we use, and how can we get our minds to be analytical thinkers so we can sound out every word in the English language? And of course, it goes back to that line upon line. We're going to be starting to read a book. Every line counts. We're going to be sounding out new words. Any word in the English language can be sounded out. And then, of course, the 8th chapter, fold in a liberal amount of living books. I believe we've got a recipe for success because you can take any book, your favorite book, anything you read here, anything you read there can be read by a student who has learned to read in this way. And I want to just encourage you to use those treasures because they awaken the senses, they awaken the courage inside of someone, because reading is inspirational and educational, not just fun. Okay, and then at the end of the book, I'm going to have the lesson plans for each age. So no matter who you are, where you come into this program, I'm going to give you a pace at which to teach the skills, because these are the skills. So let's get started, because you know what? Questions are going to be answered. You're going to follow me through this trail. You're going to be in the game. Learning to read is the best game of life, but I want you to be part of the solution, because this is the most important skill to learn. So if you can comment in below, please comment below if this is helpful to you, because I will keep making my handbook. If you have any suggestions, please comment below and click the link below so that you can get your first 2 chapters of this handbook. The literacy crisis is here, but we can solve it. So I'm so excited for you to be here. Let's read chapter 1. What is reading instruction? Reading instruction is the explicit explanation of how written language spells the words and how they are correctly spoken or pronounced. Do you think I should use the word pronounced? It must be taught in a multisensory way so that the students learn how to write the word first, then read the word. Words need to be broken down into their smallest part, which is called a phonogram. Phono means sound, gram means to write. A phonogram is the sound, the way the sound is spelled. So that's why I start with the smallest part, because you sound out each sound, even before you sound out syllables. You've got to sound out the sounds in the syllables, and you can sound out the words as you go. So let's start with English has 45 different sounds, and I have an appendix. I have these lists. I had fun putting them together, and I'm going to be making them available in this book. These sounds are used to pronounce every word in the English language. To learn to read, you must be able to recognize how these sounds are spelled. English has 92 phonograms which spell all these words. So you've got to know the spelling patterns. There are 26 letters in the English language, and they are the 26 single letter phonograms. That means there are 66 multi-letter phonograms. There is a difference between the word letter and phonogram. The letter is the name of the alphabet symbol, and a phonogram is the sound it makes. And we're going to be teaching the phonograms because that's how you read. English has 25 spelling rules that govern which sound each phonogram says in any given word. So there are skills to attain when reading. And let's get on with the effective instruction. Effective instruction links the spoken word to the written word in a systematic and all-inclusive way. The brain must be trained to analyze the words by sounding out each phonogram and blending them together to make a word that is correctly pronounced. And as I go through this handbook, I'm going to be explaining how to teach the spelling words and how that is training the brain. Now, I don't wish to call out any group in society and label them, but the dyslexic reader who learns to read needs to be taught this way. And they have been taught this way. People with dyslexia know how to read, and have their doctorate degrees. They have learned how to read. There are many programs like Romualda Spalding's Writing Road to Reading, Orton Gillingham, the Spell to Write and Read by Wanda Sinceri. Each of these methods have been successful in teaching reading. I have studied these programs and have distilled the concepts taught in these methods to bring practical knowledge into a step-by-step method that can supplement any curriculum and with expansion can become a complete language arts program. Now, this handbook is complete in instruction that will teach the student to sound out words accurately so that you can use any book to practice the reading skills. Practice is the operative word. See, when I'm teaching you what reading is, you have to learn the skills, then you have to practice them. To learn to read, you must read every day. You build your brain, you build your ability to sit still, you build your ability to focus. This is something that is done over time, and teaching reading is the most practical way. How many times have you seen a child sit still and read a book? That is the ultimate engagement for a child. This is the habit that must be formed. It's great if you read to them. It's great if you have an audio book, but even an audio book, you can be cleaning the house, playing, doing anything and still listen. Holding a book and reading a book engages the brain and makes you sit still and focus. Now, at the beginning, you are reading words on the chart and reading spelling words, okay? So that's what you're starting with, the ground floor up, starting with words. Then you write original sentences and you read them. As you introduce your spelling words, which is another chapter in the handbook, you're going to be teaching them oral language writing skills. You're going to say, use that in a sentence. And we're going to write sentences together on the board. The student can read the ones that the teacher, write. And then eventually, very soon in fact, they're going to be writing original sentences. Then you write the sentence about each book or text you read. That way, no matter what little book you give them, you know they read it if they can write a sentence about what they read. And you're teaching them the grammar of every sentence. Begins with a capital letter, ends with a period, and has a subject and a verb. And you teach grammar. In fact, that is the beauty of teaching reading this way. You can also learn grammar through writing. So it's an all-inclusive language arts program if you think of it that way, because writing is the ultimate correct grammar usage. Now, this is interacting with the written word that closes the learning loop. You've got to close it. You can't give them any chance of saying that doesn't work, because if you come across a word that doesn't fit what you've learned, you've started to have confusion. But if you've taught them how to write and read and interact with the written word while they're writing it and reading books, it's all going to become a complete loop, and then you've taught them how to read. Good books are the first reading books, and you can choose the simple ones to build the skills. I've got lots of ideas at the end of this book, and as my audience, I'm going to be compiling a list of my readers' choices, because if you have the best reading books in front of the beginning reader, guess what? They'll learn to read, and then they're hooked in its ability that they have, and then they won't stop because they got stopped. A fourth grade level reader is not a reader. There's a lot of books on higher levels that are fantastic, and if you can only read to a fourth grade level, you struggle, and you don't want to have a struggling reader when it's possible to teach this. This is the most exciting thing, because it's not taught in colleges, so it's not the same old, same old. This is something new. I will include a list of books that I've used over the years, and I will accept your choices. What are the best beginning readers you've used so that the children can read? That's the idea. when you learn to read this way, you can pick up any book and begin your journey as a reader. That's the idea. I have students that have picked up the most amazing color books. The books are these graphic novels, and then they try to read them, and they're like, the concepts are too big. It's just not on their level. So if you need to teach them how to read, and then if they do pick up these difficult books, they're not just looking at the pictures, they're actually understanding the words as well. So that's the idea. Let's teach them how to read. So if they pick up a difficult book, they're not just looking at the pictures. They actually can enjoy the book for themselves. Now, you will be given access to the most organized and brilliant minds on the planet, both living and dead. Remember, that's what reading is. There's a lot of people more organized than me that have written books that can help you on any topic. And that's what we're giving the child, the student, the adult. We're giving the reader access to the most organized, brilliant minds on the planet, both living and dead. This is the privilege of the reader, and you can provide this opportunity to any reader. Okay, so that was chapter 1. Now, I'm going to just wait and let this sink in for a minute. The first chapter was all about what is reading instruction. Now, can you think back to your reading instruction? And can you tell me how you learned to read? I've been interviewing people that I meet on the street, but I didn't videotape them. And one girl, she goes, I don't remember how I learned to read, but I remember the Magic Treehouse books. You see, a lot of times kids are so little when they learn how to read, but they learned how to read, so they don't remember how they read. I've known adults that can't remember how they read. Can you remember how you learned to read? Okay, because this is going to help you think through when you teach reading. Okay, this is my first chapter to the Handbook for Teaching Reading, the Comprehensive Phonics Method. You see, I am a confident teacher. I know I have the method of teaching reading that will help everyone, dyslexics, anyone. In fact, please type, you'll see the link below where you can get this first chapter of the handbook that I've written. Click the link below so that you can get my free chapter 1 of the Handbook for Teaching Reading. I'm new at YouTube, but I know you're out there, and I'm so glad you stopped by. I appreciate your desire to learn how to read successfully. It is an admirable endeavor. Now, as I've already made the video for the 3 ways a single vowel says its name, I'm probably going to add it in a couple of days, but I think you're going to find me so organized. You're going to be like, thank you for doing this so that you can get me organized. Because I really do think that's the important thing. We have to start with what is teaching reading. Teaching reading is teaching the skills to read. Can they read the words? That's what you've got to learn. And can they pronounce them correctly? Do you have the ability to pronounce the words correctly? I was reading The Lightning Thief with one of my students just recently, in fact today. And so they're in the first chapter, and you remember Nancy Bobofet, the freckly, red-haired kleptomaniac, okay? What is a kleptomaniac? Well, I told my student to follow through listening to the reading to see if he can decide what a kleptomaniac is. But of course I told him, I said, kleptomaniac is someone who steals and they can't help themselves. They're always stealing something. You see, reading books are the way to learn words. And this is exciting. And if you can pronounce them correctly in your mind and out loud, you've probably watched a show that's been about a kleptomaniac. Nancy Bobafett is one. That's the one I know. But anyway, this is exciting. This is how teaching reading should be. They know how to read. Now let's have fun reading. All right, have a wonderful day, my friends. I'm so glad you stopped by, and I'll see you next time. Bye.